Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. Here is this week's meals for you. So to get started, we are going to do a spicy honey lime chicken. Now I changed this recipe up in my true fashion like I always do, and I actually chose to bake this recipe. This was a recipe that they recommended skewering it and putting it on the barbecue grill, but we are in freezing cold weather right now and I am not feeling to go outside and barbecue in the rain and possibly ice and snow. So we're gonna do it in the oven inside where it's nice and warm. So to get started, we are going to make up a marinade. So to make the marinade, what you want to do is take 3 tablespoons of a low sodium soy sauce. Mine was just a regular one and it was perfectly fine. 6 tablespoons of honey. You can use maple syrup in this as well. 1 teaspoon of lime zest from 1 lime. 3 tablespoons of fresh lime juice from 1.5 to 2 limes. Now I used 2 limes in this and this was so limey it was almost overpowering. I also used the zest of that whole lime, which I probably shouldn't have done either. So next time I make it, because I'm gonna make this again because it was really delicious, I'm just gonna lay back on the lemon or lime juice. But if you like it, go nuts, add the 2 limes. Then you're gonna add 4 cloves of garlic, minced or grated, 1.5 tablespoons of grated fresh ginger, and 1 tablespoon of oil. I use a avocado oil, and then 1.5 tablespoons of a sriracha. And it does say to pick the more spicier srirachas because I know they do come in different levels. So I use the hot sriracha, and then 1.25 teaspoon of kosher salt in this. So once you get that all combined, you're just going to mix it together and set it aside. Now if you are doing these on the skewers like the recipe recommends, just cut it into 2-inch strips and then you can put it onto the skewers nice and easy. But we're going to actually make these in the oven. So what I'm doing is just cutting them into about 1-inch cubes, and I used 2 chicken breasts, so probably about 1.5 pounds of chicken. The recipe does also recommend to use maybe about 2.5 pounds of chicken. Once you get the chicken chopped up, you are going to take half of that marinade that you made and you are going to stir it until it's combined, and then you're going to let it marinate on the countertop for about 30 minutes. The recipe also says that you can marinate this for 6 to 12 hours in the fridge. It does give you a tip if you are marinating it overnight. It says just leave out the lime juice, increase the zest just so that you don't cook your chicken. So after the 30 minutes of it marinating, I have my oven preheated at 375 degrees. I'm just going to pour off a little bit of the marinade that was with the chicken just because I didn't want it to be too liquidy. And then I'm going to put that in the oven, and I cooked it for about 20 minutes until the chicken was completely cooked through. So with the other half of that marinade that we reserved, it suggests you make a glaze with it. So it says to take half a teaspoon of cornstarch and stir it into that reserved marinade, microwave it for 1 minute, and it should make a glaze-like consistency. It didn't really make one for me. I probably just didn't use enough cornstarch. Next time I'll just, in a sauce pot, I think it thickens up a little bit better that way instead of doing it in the microwave. So once the chicken was completely cooked through, I took it out of that pan and just kind of drained it a little bit and then stirred in that reserved marinade that we just mixed with the cornstarch, and I just mixed everything together until the chicken was good and coated. Earlier in the day, I had made up some white rice, and then we're just going to top that white rice with our chicken and a little bit of that liquid. And then I also took a pint of my canned corn and just microwaved that a little bit, just heat it up. And it was pretty good supper. It turned out okay, other than the fact that it was just a very, very limey dish. But other than that, it was good. So for the next meal, we are going to make a creamy black bean soup. This recipe was my son's favorite when he was really little. It was just my go-to recipe. I have not made it in such a long time, and it's been cold, so tonight was the perfect night to have the creamy black bean soup. To get started with, we are going to take 3 pints of my home canned black beans, and we're just going to get them drained and rinsed really well. And then to a blender, we're going to add 1 cup of chicken stock. If you want to make this a completely vegetarian meal, you can actually add veggie stock to this. That's what the original recipe actually calls for. You're going to blend these all together until it gets to be a nice smooth puree. Now the recipe says in a medium stock pot over medium-low heat, add onion, carrots, bell pepper, garlic, and cook for about 15 minutes until the carrots are just tender. I didn't want to add all of those ingredients, so I actually just came in and added some canned corn, some granulated onion, and some of my garlic cubes, and then I just sauteed that just for a couple of minutes just to kind of get the garlic melted. melted. I have made it using all of the carrot, like the fresh carrots, the bell peppers, all of that stuff, and it is really, really good. Once the vegetables are done sauteing, you are going to add those pureed beans, the remaining 3 cups of the whole beans, the remaining 3 cups of whatever stock you're using, and then you're also going to come in and add 2 tablespoons of an apple cider vinegar, 1 tablespoon of chili powder, half a teaspoon of cayenne, half a teaspoon of ground cumin, half a teaspoon of fine sea salt. I actually added just a touch bit more salt because my broth was unsalted, same with my beans. And then you're gonna add in half a teaspoon of liquid smoke. I used a mesquite in this one and it was really, really good choice. So you're going to bring that all to a boil and then reduce the heat to simmer and let it cook uncovered for about 50 to 60 minutes until the soup is thickened and all the ingredients are tender. I came in after the 60 minutes and it was pretty condensed down already, so I just added probably about half a cup more of chicken broth to it. Just stirred it in, let it cook for like another 5 minutes, and then it was good. We topped this soup with some of our smoked cheddar. I put a little bit of pickled jalapenos on it, and it was just terrific. This is an amazing, easy to make recipe. It does take a little bit to cook because it does take about 60 minutes to cook, but it is a pretty yummy recipe. I'm actually thinking that I may potentially want to try to can this recipe, and then I would be able to reheat it really quickly. So maybe something in the future. For the next meal, it was one I was really, really excited to make. I love this recipe. It is very fresh. I went and purchased a basil plant. I got this at Walmart and I think I paid $1.25 for it, and I up-potted it into one of my really big pots, and I just leave that in my front window. That way I have fresh herbs all winter long. To get started on this meal, we are gonna take a pound of ground beef and just get that cooked and browned, and then once it is completely cooked through, we'll just set it aside. So for the vodka sauce, we are gonna add 3 tablespoons of an oil. Recipe says extra virgin. I just use an avocado oil, and it does suggest to use 1 medium sweet onion chopped and 3 cloves of garlic minced. You're gonna saute that for about 3 to 4 minutes, and then you're gonna come in and add a 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and you wanna cook that for 1 minute. Then you're going to stir in a 20-ounce can of whole peeled tomatoes. I just used a quart size of my home canned diced tomatoes, and then you're also going to add in 1/3 cup of vodka. You wanna do this at the beginning, that way it gives it a chance for that vodka just to kind of burn off a bit. Because I didn't use the onions at the beginning, I just came in and probably added a couple teaspoons of my granulated onion. Then you're gonna cook that for about 5 to 7 minutes. Again, we're trying to get that alcohol burned off. And then what you're gonna do is stir in some tomato paste. Now I'm just using some frozen tomato paste that I had in my freezer. You wanna use about 1 tablespoon of it. You're going to also come in and add 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, 1 teaspoon of kosher salt and black pepper to taste. You wanna reduce the heat to low and simmer it partly covered for about 20 minutes until it's reduced by about half. While it was cooking, I decided to make up some bruschetta. I had some stale sourdough bread and I thought this was gonna be perfect. I love my canned bruschetta. I can link that video. I showed you guys how I can it up. It is so delicious. It is one of our pantry staples. So I just took my sourdough bread and just sliced it into smaller pieces, topped it with a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, and then I put on some of my canned bruschetta, drizzled a little balsamic vinegar on the top of all of them, and then I came in and added a little Parmesan cheese. I put these in a 375-degree oven for about 15 minutes. I just kind of kept coming back and checking to make sure they were done. To have with the vodka sauce, you can make whatever pasta you would like. This was the particular pasta that I chose on this night. You're then going to add a 1/4 cup of fresh chopped basil. I just chopped it with my hands here. And then the next step, you can either add this mixture to a food processor or a blender and puree it until it's smooth. I just chose to keep it all in the pot and just use my immersion blender. If you choose this, be careful. It is so messy. After you get it blended up, you are going to come in and add 1/2 to 3/4 cup of half and half. I used the 3/4 cup because I wanted it nice and creamy. And I chose to add the beef to this. You can actually make this completely vegetarian without adding meat. I was trying to fill it essentially and make it go a little bit further. So I added in the beef at this point. You're gonna add 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese and just cook it for an additional 2 to 3 minutes, just until everything is nice and warmed together. The bruschetta was done after about 20 minutes. So I took that out of the oven, and this was just a really nice, delicious meal. This vodka sauce is not overly creamy. It does have a nice tomato taste to it, so it's perfect if you have a lot of your canned tomatoes still on your pantry shelf. Get them used up with this recipe. It is a good one. For the next recipe, we are going to make an easy mixed berry cobbler. I was doing a freezer cleanout this particular day and I found this vanilla cake mix. I had made this from scratch months ago and just threw it in my freezer, and I found it buried at the back of it. And then it had all of these frozen raspberries and a little bit of frozen strawberries that were starting to go freezer burn that I also needed to get used. So this recipe was perfect for it. I almost wasn't going to show you guys because it was so easy, but I thought that's the whole point of me showing you guys this stuff, is that you can make easy stuff really quickly, really easy. So to get started, we are going to add 2 pounds of mixed berries. We can use these just frozen. We don't need to thaw them. You can definitely use fresh berries if you have them. Then you're going to take zest from 1 lemon and 1 tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. I just use my frozen stuff that I had processed a while ago, and stuff just regular lemon juice from the fridge worked fine. Just going to get that all stirred in and incorporated. And then you're going to come in and add 3/4 cup of a granulated sugar, half a cup of an all-purpose flour, and 1 tablespoon of a cornstarch. I just used arrowroot in this. I just tend to use arrowroot more than cornstarch, and you could probably even get away with using a gluten-free flour in this as well. Essentially, you're just adding the flour and the arrowroot in here just to kind of thicken it up when it cooks, to absorb all of that moisture that those frozen berries are going to give. So you're just going to stir that until it is completely incorporated. You want to take half a cup of butter, melted, so 1 stick of butter, and then your vanilla cake mix. So if you're just using a box of cake mix, you're just going to take that box and just dump it all into a mixing bowl. Because I was using some stuff that I had pre-made, the measurements were off a little bit, and you'll see what I had to do coming up. So you're going to take your melted butter and stir that over top of your cake mix, and it says that you want to get it to be nice and crumbly. It says it's okay if it has dry spots, but I was noticing that it was really, really wet. So I came in and added probably maybe a 1/4 cup of flour to this, and I just used a regular all-purpose unbleached flour. Then you want to either spoon or just spread this mixture over top of the cobbler. You want to have your oven preheated at 350 degrees, and you're going to bake this for about 40 to 50 minutes, or until the top starts to turn golden and the berries are nice and bubbly. So after 50 minutes, this was what mine looked like. It turned out perfect. So it says you want to let this cool for a few minutes and then serve this with warm vanilla ice cream or whipped cream. So I decided just to make some whipped cream myself. I just took some heavy whipping cream, just probably about 1/2 teaspoon of granulated sugar, and just mix that together until it made a whipped cream texture. I really strongly recommend either having this with whipped cream or vanilla ice cream, because it does melt and make it just that much better. It's so, so delicious, and I got to clean my freezer out. Definitely going to be making this again when it is berry season. For the last meal, we are going to make a salmon loaf. I had purchased some salmon from Sam's Club a while ago because I love having it as a shelf-stable protein option for us. So I found this recipe. The reviews looked pretty good, so we're going to try to make it tonight. So what you want to do first of all is you want to take either aluminum foil and line a loaf pan. I just took parchment paper, just sprayed it a little bit with some of my avocado oil, and then you're going to take 3 cans of salmon and you just want to drain them extremely well. The recipe does state just to make sure that they are very drained and that you flake them very well. You do not want large chunks of salmon in this because it does cause the loaf to not turn out very good. So I was making sure I had it really, really dense. You also see here that I was only using 2 cans of salmon because the recipe calls to use smaller cans. So I just used 2 of the bigger cans. Then to that, you want to add 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. You can use panko breadcrumbs in this. 1.5 cups of a grated Parmesan cheese. If you are going to add it, 2 green onions. It says to chop them nice and small. 1/2 cup of diced yellow onion. Again, she does state to slice them very small. I use some granulated onion in this. Then you want to add 1 teaspoon of dry dill wheat or fresh dill. I definitely would strongly recommend using fresh. I use the dry and it added no extra flavor to it. 1 teaspoon of dried parsley, or again fresh. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of ground pepper. And then you're going to mix that all together until everything is really good and incorporated. Then in a separate bowl, you are going to take 2 large eggs and 1/2 cup of milk and just beat them together. And then you want to add that to the dry ingredients and just stir it really well until absolutely everything is really combined very, very well. I decided to use my hands because you really want to make sure that that loaf is moist and that it sticks together. And I just found the spoon wasn't working so well. So I have my oven preheated at 350 degrees. And what we're going to do is take this salmon and we're going to put it into the loaf pan. can. You just want to kind of compact it down and just make sure that everything is in there nice and tight. And then you're going to bake this for about 45 to 55 minutes. One thing she does suggest is that you can add additional toppings to it. You can drizzle it with a little bit of lemon juice. It says you could add melted butter on top of it. I chose to actually add some of my barbecue sauce, my cowboy candy barbecue sauce that I made. It was delicious with barbecue sauce. So after you've let it cook for about 45 minutes, you want to take it out, cover it with some foil, and then put it in for another 10 minutes. And then this is what it looks like when it is done. We ended up actually topping this with a little bit additional barbecue sauce because it was a tad bit dry, and it may have been because I was using different size cans of the salmon. I'm not quite sure, but it was really, really, really delicious, though. Definitely would make this again. We had some cauliflower on the side and some French fries and just a really, really good meal. So this is going to be the last meal for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope I give you a little inspiration for the upcoming week. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you are watching this, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye guys.